Tony D and Little Joan in the background, and this is your Screenwriter's rant on Spartacus, House of Ashur. Another Spartacus spin off show, but this time the main character is going to be a strong, independent black woman. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys books 1 through 18, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. Now, some people on X are defending this show by saying, we all know there were women gladiators and they were better than the men and more famous. We all know that. No psyop bot that's been put on X to annoy everybody. That is not true. Were there female gladiators? There may have been, as a novelty, some lesbian stuff in this show, so it's not all bad. There were also black gladiators, because the Romans did expand into Africa. They captured people, they enslaved them, and the best fighters would eventually drift to the Roman capital to fight. So this isn't completely out of whack with history, except the dialogue in this. Let me see if I can find it now. What's the line? Something like, I'm just as good as the men, kind of thing. They will never welcome a woman as one of their own. First off, that's not a choice when you have as a slave. That's absolutely not a choice. All the gladiators, just about, with some exceptions, were slaves. Slavery was part of the Roman dynamic. Okay? So it wasn't like it was a shocking thing and an embarrassing thing. It was like, oh, are you a slave? Oh, well, you better go get to work then. Oh, you're not a slave? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a slave. Is there a slave around here? That's how casual it was. There were people who were slaves, and there were people who were not slaves. And a lot of it just had to do with how much money you had, or whether or not your people had been conquered. So this would have been someone who was conquered on the outskirts of the empire and dragged back to Rome to fight, or wherever this takes place, somewhere near Rome, probably. So none of the other gladiators would have had a choice. They just would have, Now, I don't know if they would have given her separate quarters, probably, because they probably would have been like, well, we don't want her to be raped nonstop by the other gladiators. So they would have probably given her own quarters and whatnot. And maybe the gladiators would have resented her a little bit for that, but they would have been in the same boat. I mean, they're slaves, she's a slave. So they're just happy to get through the day without their master saying, hey, why don't you go fight that tiger over there for my amusement? Yeah. So, but fortunately for the slaves at that time, they were considered a valuable resource. So you wouldn't just waste your slave on something like that unless you were the, Caligula or Nero or someone like that. But, yeah, this line of dialogue, they will never welcome a woman as one of their own. F though, they don't matter. Their opinion does not matter. And when a slave, and this is her line, I did not ask to be in this house. You're a slave, I assume. So I don't know why that would matter at all. Yet I stand equal with any man within it. That would have been a laugh riot at the time, I'm sure. So, this is, again, another show with modern sensibilities. And I'm not even an expert in Roman history. I've read it. It's sort of like a hobby, one of my many hobbies. But, this show is just another it's like that Viking show where they jammed in a bunch of black women just to, I don't know, equal it out somehow and make the show completely insane. I don't know who would watch this and say, "Oh, this is a good show." It's a good show. You got black Vikings, you call it a good show? What's wrong with you? This is also maybe fueling a lot of the conspiracies online that the Japanese were originally black, the Vikings were originally black, everybody was originally black in these conspiracy theories. The Chinese. It's bizarre. So I assume she's going to best every man, and then, there'll be a lot of, yeah, there's a black dude in the background, like he could be in the fight. Like, at least if it was a dude, it would be pretty realistic, if you take out that dialogue, because they did take people from all over the empire. So it's not impossible that this happened. It's just impossible, this dialogue. In my opinion. So I don't know who this is for. Who is this for? I mean, do you think... I can only conclude that the people who make these shows think black people are unintelligent, and that's horrific to me. But I can't draw any other conclusion. Why would you make this show? Why wouldn't somebody in the meeting go, quick point here, I don't think she would say stuff like that. I mean, why are we putting modern dialogue into a show that takes place in ancient Rome? Oh, because it'll appeal to the modern sensibilities. Yeah, but it takes place in ancient Rome. If they're watching the show, they want to see ancient Rome. They don't want to see modern day. If I want to see, a strong, empowered black woman in the modern day talking about how she's not equal, I could watch SVU. I could watch like 1,000 other shows, literally, that take place in the modern day and lecture us continually. Still, I mean, some of the stuff is sort of aging its way out of television, I guess you could say, or streaming or whatever. Imagine paying for this. Imagine being like, "Oh man, I can't wait to get Stars so I can watch Spartacus, House of Ashur." Is he even in it? I assume not, since it's like a spin-off show. The Spartacus uprising was cool. Cool thing in history. It didn't last forever. So, I don't know how long of a show that was. I think they've got another spin-off. Eventually they lost. Spoilers. So what are you going to do? Just like what you could do in a show like this is you could make up, I don't know if these are based on real people. I mean, it's got Spartacus in it, so you got to think it's at least based somewhat on real people. But you could just start a completely fictional universe. But instead they take real stuff and like twist it. So it's, there it is. Spartacus War of the Dam that you can buy, season 1. Oh, wow, that was from 2013. So I guess all that stuff is over. Is this the only hit Stars, the channel Stars had? Is that why they're doing this? They got all the sets lying around. They figured, well, could do another Spartacus show. Well, we did all the Spartacus we could do. Well, what do we do a spin-off with a strong, empowered black woman? Ooh. I assume this was in development like 2-3 years ago, which is part of the problem. That's why we're still getting this woke-tarded stuff. It just keeps coming out. And people keep saying, what? Why are you doing this? Like, it's worse. Because what happened was 2 or 3 years ago, that would have been like 2022, we were at peak woke, right? Now we can look back and say, well, that was about peak woke then. Maybe you could stretch it out to 2023, beginning of 2024. But really, after Trump won, it all, everybody started going, oh, we got to get rid of this stuff. But now that we're well into 2025, yeah, like no one's starting up stuff like this. But they invested a lot of money. And look, I'm sure the stunt works fine. It's just the drama which drives the entire show isn't based on reality. It's based on a pseudo reality that some woke DEI hire wishes were true, and they're going to change society with their wacky, you know, history revisionism. I mean, this is literally like, you ever see the movies when you'd have the Soviet Union guys in a sub, and there'd be one guy in the sub, and he's the communist, like he's the Politburo officer, and his job is to make sure everybody loves communism, right? And like nobody can badmouth the state because that's his job. His job is to walk around and go, hey, you're not badmouthing the state, are you? The state's perfect. Gave you this sub and everything in it, so shut up. Like that's his job. And then, you know, somebody in the plot's always somebody on the sub has a problem with communism finally and says something about, I didn't get too many rations today. And then, you know, is a big problem. I imagine the DEI people are kind of like those Politburo, right? They're sitting in these meetings going, well, we don't have enough people of color in this show. You know, we need more people of color. Nobody's going to ask why. There's not going to be a follow-up of why. Why do we need more people of color exactly? See, that's why I wouldn't be in these meetings. Because I would be that guy. I'd be, excuse me, this is ancient Rome. Why do we need so many people of color, as you say, in the story? They weren't actually there. And then I'd be called into the office and quietly fired. Assuming I had a job at all, being a straight white male. So this is the last vestiges of this, is I guess what you could take heart in. It's still funny to laugh at it. Because they could have gotten away with it. That's the sad part. Like, they could have put this character in the mix and even made her the protagonist. You know, you could have done this show. I could see a total pitch for this show where there is a forgotten female black warrior who was like the greatest gladiator ever, but you've never heard of her because, of course, the Romans wouldn't write about him or write about her, right? Some of them were maybe embarrassed that a woman, not that race wouldn't have had anything to do with it in ancient Rome. They wouldn't have cared about race, not one whit. They might have said something like, wow, she's really dark, but, you know, it would have been about her being a woman. And it would have been like, oh my God, a woman beat that dude. That's embarrassing. So it would have been more about that. But in ancient Rome, you know, you could have made her like a celebrity, like they put her in the arena because she's so unusual looking to people in ancient Rome. She becomes a big hit and they don't want her to die. So instead, they keep fixing the matches. So the other gladiators die in some way. And she has to deal with that. So not only, like, she's not the greatest warrior in the world, but she's like one of the most famous. So it's less like character art, like where at first she thinks she's gonna die. But then she manages to win a couple of battles and she becomes so famous, now they won't let her die. That would be an amazing show. And then the end of that, of course, would be, can she buy her way to freedom? As many Roman slaves did, and some gladiators too. Like, can she woo the crowd enough that, you know, they eventually free her? And maybe she marries into a Roman house or something like that to get out. And has to do terrible things to survive. That would be a compelling show. This looks like a show in which, you know, she gets thrown into the arena and then complains, and everybody's like, oh, well, I don't want to look like a racist in ancient Rome. I don't want to look like a sexist. Oh, they'll never accept you as a woman. Like, what is this? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever in ancient Rome. Not that anybody in the Star's corporate hierarchy would probably care, but they should, is my point. And And it's always been my point that a lot of TV execs and film execs, studio execs, oh, that's a good shot. They just don't care. They just want ratings, right? Which, to some extent, I understand. But they're hurting themselves. Guys, if you see one of these, please just listen to my logic here. Here's why you're hurting yourself. Number one, you don't know what you're doing creatively. You know what you're doing financially, because you guys all got MBAs. You went to business school, so I don't blame you for chasing the dollar. That's what you should be doing. But when it comes to talent, you have to choose good talent and then set them loose and protect them as best you can. Now, when the talent doesn't produce something that makes money, you axe them. You say, no, well, maybe I'll give you another chance, but yeah, this didn't work out. But when the talent does something good, when the talent comes back to you and says, hey, this show doesn't really make any sense. And part of the problem, I think, is even if you have an exec like that in the hierarchy, you hired so many DEI morons that basically all your talent is DEI. Basically, and anyone who's not is, going along with the program. Oh yeah, we need more people of color. Oh God, this is gonna be terrible. Because they just want a paycheck. So it's kind of like, remember, when a king has a bunch of noblemen in the court, and everybody's afraid to countermand the king's orders. That's kind of what the corporate structure has turned into with regard to this. And it's always sort of been that way. Like, the people who are talent, they just want to work. They want to work in this amazing industry where they get to pretend to be other people and dress up and act and do creative stuff and get paid for it, which is really, really hard. So when you got an opportunity, even if you know the project ain't that great or totally stupid, you're probably going to take it because you have to eat. And then you say to yourself, you probably rationalize it by saying, well, someday I'll move up the chain and then they'll let me be in something good. Instead, execs in Hollywood, what you should do, again, is pick people who have a pretty interesting track record. Now, some guys in old Hollywood, they were like, you got it, kid. You got it. I can see it. I mean, you need execs like that. I'm sure there's a handful left, but if they're just picking someone because they're DEI hires, that is not someone who has it. Someone who has it is, you talk to them and you just get excited, right? You just get excited about their project. You go, wow, this sounds like an amazing idea. Tell me more. And then you listen to them, and it's like you want to keep listening to them. You're so busy, but you want to hear their idea. That's the kind of person you need behind a show like this. Not a bunch of DEI hires or hipsters going, yeah, we're going to have a woman of color, and that's going to be different. Yeah, no, that guy, you need to fire that guy. He's, even in my imaginary scenario, he's sucking the energy out of the room. This show will just sort of come and go, I think. It'll be on the air. Maybe they'll renew it another season for some ESG points, or they'll slowly try to, pull it out of the DEI dive. But I wouldn't watch it. After that one line, I wouldn't watch it. The men will not accept you. The men they're essentially slaves. The gladiators are essentially slaves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be gladiators. They're going to die. They're going to die in the arena. I don't think a lot of people signed up for that. Maybe a few of them did. Probably a few of them did, but, maybe they thought, and maybe it was the only way they could get out of debt. Maybe they just like stabbing people. But, having a, strong, empowered woman, in the mix who somehow takes charge of ancient Rome, you people are nuts. This is like more Gladiator 2. it's not even history revisionism. I don't even think they're making an attempt to revise history or say this is true or anything. I think they're just, they're just following the playbook as always. But that playbook's done. The new playbook's here. So now you're going to have to retool everything. All those guys who told you, hey, you shouldn't do this, and you're fired, you're going to have to hire them all back. I hope you do. This to me is just an example of, the late woke media. So hopefully this is the end of it. Maybe we'll have a handful of other TV shows and movies to laugh at. And again, the woke bucket is going to run dry. It's starting to get pretty low. Some of the other guys in the mix who do these kinds of videos, they built their whole personality on anti-woke. And when that all goes away, I don't know how you're going to analyze anything. Although, a guy who did a lot of that, but did a great video just recently was Carl Benjamin. Did a video on why Jurassic Park has lost its soul, and he must have really read all the books and seen all the movies, because he really nails it. He really nails it. But I think a show like this had no soul to begin with. I don't even know. I mean, some people say the Spartacus TV show was badass, had a lot of nudity and violence. Maybe one day I'll see it. I don't know. But this looks like a laugh riot. A laugh effing riot. All right, that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. What's up for me? Friday, August 1st, I'm doing a men's club in Osprey at a diner. So that's going to be nice. I'm going to get a free breakfast and do my talk. But the one that's invite only. But the big one that I'm going to promote, God forbid it rains, but Tuesday, August 5th, I'll be back at LBI at the LBI book swap. So definitely come out to that, assuming it doesn't pour. But so far, looking into the future, it looks solid, and I am psyched to be back in LBI. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.